I know by now a lot of you may have heard the word or the name HPV or HPV vaccine, and some already know that, oh, it's another kind of vaccine, but others are still not sure if it's actually necessary. And now 2 years after the free HPV vaccine was rolled out in Nigeria for girls aged 9 to 14, it's important to know how far we have come as it concerns the uptake, hesitancy of this particular vaccine. Hello, good evening and welcome to Gyna Plus. This is where we talk about health issues that affect women and girls in the society. And of course, my name is Doris Mayam-Shishe. And this program comes up every Wednesday at 6 p.m. And sometimes you can catch up with the repeat broadcast on Saturday at 8 p.m. And today we're going to talk about HPV vaccine, everything that you need to know from myth, awareness, and what it does basically. So you see, it's going to be a power-packed segment. So all you need to do is sit back and watch. And right after the break, you'll meet my guest, an amazing gentleman on the show. Please stay tuned. Thank you for staying tuned. If you just joined us, this is Gyna Plus, a health program for women, health issues. And this program comes up every Wednesday at 6 p.m. And of course, if you're tuning in for the first time, we have a channel on YouTube called Afia Lifestyle and Culture. So there's a lot of health information from this show that is being posted there. So you can visit, take a look, and watch one or two. My name is Doris Mayam-Shishe. And today, before the break, I mentioned the fact that we're going to be talking about HPV vaccine. So you get to hear more of HPV vaccine and other information that's related to vaccine generally. And I'm being joined by a very handsome gentleman, someone who has been championing the cause of HPV and immunization generally. I'm talking about Dr. Ikenna Emedike. He is Enugu State immunization champion on social media campaign for IPA and PAN. IPA is International Pediatric Association, and PAN, of course, is Pediatric Association of Nigeria. It's good to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Doris.
I mean, one would say that, okay, beautiful coincidence that, because it wasn't actually planned, like we are already getting to the World Immunization Week.
Exactly.
And it's important that this conversation is being held. Aside from the fact that it's timely, it's important that we keep talking about it. But before we get into HPV generally, like the whole vaccination thing and why it's important, just give us let's start with the basics. A bit of a rundown, because sometimes when you hear HPV, sometimes people mistake it for hepatitis. There's that confusion there. So just give us, just tell us a bit of what HPV is first of all, and what HPV vaccine is, and then what it does. More like a threefold question.
Okay, fine. Thank you for having me here. First and foremost, as an immunization champion under the auspices of IPA, International Pediatric Association, and Pediatric Association of Nigeria. In the capacity of a social media person and a champion, I am going to come in by explaining that HPV means human papilloma virus. And the human papilloma virus, just like every other viruses, they can be contracted from skin to skin touches. So usually when there is an unprotected sex, okay, they can actually infect the cervix. And the cervix is more of like the neck of the uterus, okay? And over chronic inflammation of this cervix, the cells tend to change in their morphology. The normal cells tend to change and they become eventually cancerous, okay? The CIN, carcinoma in situ. So, but when we come to the HPV vaccine, it's actually more of like a biological product, okay, that has been designed in such a way that once it is being given to someone early enough, the body tends to build immunity, okay, and then this immunity that is being built now prevents the host, who peradventure, if gets contracted by the virus, will already resist the infection. So it is very important that people understand that HPV is not the same thing as HBV, hepatitis B virus. This one is human papilloma virus. This one is more of like related to cervical cancer and other cancers. It can also cause anal cancer. It can also cause oropharyngeal or esophageal cancers, okay? Especially in people that have reduced immune system. So people should understand that this is the difference, basically.
All right. I mean, thank you for that background. It's really important that we know because recently, I mean, just over the weekend, I visited a very popular spot in Enugu and I was trying to sample opinions on HPV vaccine and all I kept hearing is hepatitis. So that information was not, we'll definitely get to hear from them later on the show. Now, I mentioned the fact that, I mean, 2023, the federal government of Nigeria rolled out the free HPV vaccine for girls 9 to 14. And interestingly, I mean, we had some girls who availed themselves of this amazing opportunity. They got vaccinated.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, we had some other people who, for so many reasons, didn't and are still not ready to take it. But the question now is, why was this age group, why is attention on them? And why is it important that, okay, they start with these young people? Because I noticed for older women, you have to pay to get it.
Exactly.
So why this age bracket?
Okay, just to keep it short and simple, I will call it a golden window for the ladies, 9 to 14. We actually want to catch them young. Now, there's a way the body functions. The earlier, the better. During the developmental stages of a child, the immune systems build stronger resistance early enough when exposed to the HPV vaccine. Unlike those that have been exposed to the virus, peradventure, by age, the immune system is not as good as it is when the ladies are younger. So, and then it is better to actually also have these vaccination shots before exposure to sex. So that 9 to 14 years, actually, it's a very, very good golden window to give our girls the HPV shots, the vaccine shots. So as by the time they now get exposed to sex, peradventure, their immune system will be so strong that they cannot be able, the chances of contracting or rather developing the disease is highly reduced, up to about, the vaccine gives about 90% coverage. However, taking the shots does not mean that one should not be going for the screening.
Okay.
Okay? So, because of, let's use this analogy. If it gives 90% coverage, that means just about 10% is actually showing that there is still this slim chance that you can still develop it. But, I mean, 90% is a good, it's so enormous. So, from the ages of 21, ladies have been encouraged to go for their pap smear for at least 3 years interval. But one shot is enough to give, especially in Africa, to give a lifelong protection.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Now, thank you again for that clarity. Because I know that the question of, okay, why is it one? Because I noticed for some time that it has to be 3 shots. And for this particular free rollout, it was just meant to be one.
Yeah, just one.
And I mean, like I mentioned earlier on, some persons, there were so many issues around it. I was supposed to have representatives from Primary Health, Enugu Primary Health Care Agency, but I mean, unfortunately, I mean, there was no actual response. And now that you're here, someone who's been championing this cause online and on other platforms doing outreaches, how has it been like from 2023 till now, from the outreaches you've done? What has it been like, a pushback from social media? Because I know so many misconceptions, so many propaganda stems from social media.
Absolutely.
I've actually read some that they said, oh, if a lady gets to take it, that it's a way to make them barren, it's a way to reduce birth rates. So
a lot of things.
I know you probably would have been filled up with so much of it. Just take us through what it is like, from the campaigns you've done online to the ones you've done physically. What has it been like trying to let people buy into this health, changing avenue, if I have to put it that way?
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Let me take you down that road. We were actually trained as immunization champions, and from my experience on social media campaigns, after the training, I started getting a whole lot of backlash, especially from some enlightened people who are well informed. You know the funny thing, a whole lot of misconceptions and misinformations are out there in the social media space. So what we know is that the vaccine that we have is knowledge. The social media, as an immunization champion, the social media is a good space where we will need to debunk a lot of myths and misconceptions. You know, people are now on their Android. A lot of people are spending screen time, a lot of screen time on Android and all that. So we believe that if the immunization champions can't be able to stand out. In fact, at a point I had wanted to wish that I was even a lady, so I can have a stronger campaign voice for it.
Oh, so being a man actually is a sort of hindrance.
I feel that being a man is actually some sort of hindrance because just when you talk to, I can't be spending much time talking. When I talk to ladies, for instance, when I talk to ladies sometimes, for instance, even as a medical doctor, they don't pay enough attention, except maybe when a fellow lady is talking, maybe a fellow mother is talking to other women, you know, women supporting women kind of thing. But even as a man, I had to take the shots.
Of course.
Yes, I had to take the shot. Why? Boys are also allowed to take the shots. But why we are focusing on ladies is because, number one, they are the ones that have been affected. And secondly, when you protect a woman, you're protecting a nation. Okay, so basically, if the ladies are protected, it is a very good way of curbing the spread. Okay, the males, they don't actually develop all this penile cancer, for instance. But for women that develop cervical cancer, it's so terrible. You don't want to see what cervical cancer looks like. And I keep telling people that the risks of having these HPV shots is way much better than whatever side effects that people actually claim it causes, for which they develop fear for. So basically speaking, I feel we have been having a whole level of vaccine hesitancy. The acceptance level is low. Even when you try to communicate the information to enlightened, they resist the information. I even feel that the nature of enlightenment and exposure is even a factor of resistance and vaccine hesitancy. There was a study that was done in Nigeria, and surprisingly, I'll have to be honest with you, Lagos recorded the least state, or the state that recorded the least vaccine acceptance. Lagos, a place where you have enormous wealth of information. And if you go to some locations like the time I went to Okpara Square in Enugu, where I thought that, I'll be meeting some professors, you know, people that are quite the elites in the states, that are quite informed and exposed. You see that they even have that vaccine hesitancy too. If you go to the rural villages, they will have more acceptance to the vaccine, much more than the urban areas. It's just more of like, it's a paradox. But then if you look at it, I think one of the challenges that we're having now is that this misinformation in the social media is confusing a whole lot of people. Nobody really knows. That's why we all need to speak up and give out the real vaccine, which is knowledge. The vaccine is knowledge. We keep on informing people, keep on having compassion to those who have fear, and guide them appropriately.
Yeah, I mean, later on in the show, we're going to talk about a possible side effect, because we would definitely have a second part of this conversation. Like I mentioned before, I had an interview done around the streets of Enugu. I spoke to some people, and I can relate where you said if you're a man who don't want to give that all of that 100% attention.
Yeah.
So I approached a gentleman and a lady, and I said, okay, this is what I want to do. I like to access your level of knowledge on this. The man said, I'm not a woman, no, talk to the ladies. So I'm like, okay, so you could be a husband, a father,
exactly.
a brother to some sister.
Yeah.
So it's important you just know about it. So eventually we had that interview done. So at this point, we'll take a break. Not a break per se, but we're going to listen to some of these voices to access a level of knowledge as it concerns HPV. And I don't know, it's something that you're very familiar with. I think it's also important that you listen to this conversation, call your friends, because it's a life-changing convo if you ask me. So just take a look, and then we'll be back after this.
It's for prevention of cervical cancer in women, and it should be taken from 12 years down. That's the head though. They said it's effective if you take it from, below 12 years. So after 12 years, it's no longer that effective. And I didn't know about it when I was below 12. So when I heard about it, I was like, okay, since it's not going to be that effective, then there's no need for me to take it anymore. That's why I haven't really taken it. Plus the time to go to the hospital and take it, yeah, all that.
I can't give it a rate, but I know I've heard of HPV vaccine as a vaccine that is used for prevention of cervical cancer. My thought about vaccines in general is if the doctors, if people are offering us vaccines for a prevention or a cure, they should also be able to check the negative effects of those vaccines. Let it not be, if you are trying to cure something, the negative effects will also like make it more like destroy the person more than the solution the vaccine is trying to bring.
I have not heard about it. This is my first time of hearing about it, and I like you to throw more these things to me so that I will understand what the thing means.
And you don't know what it prevents.
I don't even know. This is my first time of hearing it.
All right, so now you've heard from some resident in Enugu State. So you see that at this point in time, one would expect that people should know more about their health. They should know more about vaccines like HPV vaccines and maybe other possible causes, what it causes. But I wouldn't say shock per se, but I really expected more. But at this point in time, we'll take a break. And once we come back, Dr. Emedike, of course, will react on this briefly. And then we'll talk more about HPV vaccine on the show. Please stay tuned. Gyna Plus returns in a moment. Thank you for staying tuned. You're still watching Gyna Plus, of course, right here on Afia television, and this is Gyna Plus, where we discuss health, real health conversation about women's health. So it's just like a special place to be every Wednesday by 6 p.m. And once again, my name is Doris Mayushishe. I still have Dr. Ikenna Emedike right here, seated here. And I mean, you saw some of those clips, and I mean, the first lady there talked about the fact that, she has heard about HPV vaccine, but she's not yet taken it. But her concern is about the fact that, okay, why don't health experts give a holistic kind of explanation about side effects of vaccines? And the second lady was like, okay, so she probably has heard about it, but she was told that it's only for girls between 12 and down. So anything from 13 upward is not effective. That's why she hasn't taken it, plus time to go to the hospital. The other lady said she has heard about, she probably doesn't know what it's about, but her daughter has taken it, and her daughter was told in her school that she'll be taking it, and she allowed her to take it. So what is your take in all of this? From the lady that said 12 and down. And so any lady who is above 13 or above 12, for instance, once you take it, that is no longer effective. Just quickly react on that, and then we continue.
Okay, first and foremost, I'll start with the first question or the first reaction. About the lady who was saying, why don't we go to town with the side effects? The truth is, when you are passing information, we usually try to keep it short and simple. For the side effects, sometimes you might get to give out what the side effects are, and people will just take the wrong information and run to town with it, okay? They'll go and say, it's even the doctor that said it, that kind of a thing. But however, the side effects basically includes the sore at the site of injection, fatigue, mild, maybe mild headache, and mild fever, okay? But these symptoms are supposed to disappear within the space of 24 to 48 hours. When there's persistent high-grade fever, from maybe 103 degree Fahrenheit or 39.4 degrees Celsius, and it's persistent, then one should be worried. Or when someone has something like difficulty in breathing, okay, or some form of maybe fast breathing or palpitations, then the person should actually report to the nearest primary health care center or to the hospital, okay? But as far as I know, even when I took the shot myself, I had this mild
Yes, I've taken
fever,
it too. So
even the pain was there. So, but I wasn't worried.
Yes, that heaviness on the arm.
Yeah, and the truth is that this feeling is actually showing that your system is even strong. Your system is even like responding to the vaccination. So it means that your immunity is actually reacting to the vaccine and is building
in a good way.
Yeah, that's a good sign, but then it's something that people should not be really worried about, okay? Then for the other lady who talked about the 12, I think these are the kind of myths and misinformations that we in the social media space actually look out for, and we're trying to debunk them, okay? We actually are required to be active. Sometimes we might be tagging some of our facts to WHO or National Primary Healthcare Development Agencies. Information coming from these bodies are actually authentic. And there is no way these bodies would want to have anything harmful to be dispersed to a large population, such as Nigeria, that should actually have over about 300 million people right now. And I feel that we should protect our ladies by giving out the right information and asking people to also help us to share the right information rather than the wrong ones.
Yes, and just a quick one. I know that for some other, for instance, we're talking about World Immunization Week, we're talking about HPV, that's also a vaccine. And if you notice that even little children, once they take their normal BCG and all of that, there's always that mild reaction.
Exactly.
So it's not about HPV that is, the reaction is not particular or peculiar to the HPV vaccine. I think anytime an injection comes into your body, there's that reaction that comes with it.
But not rashes.
Yes.
If someone develops skin rashes, the person should report to the hospital as well.
Yeah, we'll talk more about side effect later on. Now let's talk about IPA and PAN.
Okay.
So what was the, you're a medical doctor. It's expected that you work in a hospital and you see people on a daily. So you would have ordinarily wanted to make your campaign to be physical in your office.
Absolutely.
So why the shift to digital? Why go online?
I would want to correct that impression. I did not shift. I'm still in the clinical
let's just say
space.
addition. So
Yes, it's an add-on. So kind of like when I was speaking with my friend, a Proko doctor, he told me that, Ikenna, that we need more doctors in this field, that the job, that the labor is too much, but the laborers are few. Do you understand? So I took up the interest to actually not just to join him in the social media space, but also to have an entry point of physical contact in the real-time community as well. So while I also see patients in my everyday life, whether I'm in the bus, keke, anywhere, I campaign for HPV vaccination. So on social media space, on my social media handles, I still do the same. But however, I believe that there's a better reach, a better coverage on social media space than just the physical contact with these ladies. However, there are some other bodies that we take advantage of when we see the schools, the churches, the marketplace. But the social media space is where you can get everybody just in one space within a short space of time.
Okay, so now that brings me to my next question. So with all of these, mediums that you've mentioned, which of them would you say is actually more effective? I understand that the school campaigns happen, so sometimes they go to school and they need approval to get into the school premises. So sometimes they're in market and they're too busy to listen. And then religious spaces, sometimes the whole thing, particularly I know some religions who wouldn't want to buy into these things. So there's that pushback at some point.
Yeah.
So, but which of these platforms would you say is really more effective when it comes to disseminating some of this information as it concerns vaccines generally?
Okay, I'll just come from 3 different perspectives. It depends on the population you are targeting.
Okay.
When you talk about religious bodies, basically you're targeting men. Men are the leaders of the home. So basically for instance, in the mosques, and when you talk to imams, you're talking to men. And if men adopt it in the mosque, they can easily, the family, of course, will tag along, okay? Then when you go to the marketplaces, you're looking at women, mothers, both those ones that are sellers and those ones that are buying, okay? So that's where you can catch mothers more. Then when you talk about schools, you're talking about children. Children have trust in their teachers. So by the time the teachers are also, I feel that this HPV campaign should even be routinized, like health talks in schools.
Okay.
It should be routinized in a whole lot of schools so that the children, both boys and girls, can start having the acceptance that we desire for us to really meet the goal if we want to really end cervical cancer. So I feel that the school, because of the target population, the 9 to 14 years, is of highest priority as we speak. Then we talk about, you can now, weigh out the church and the marketplace. All of them have their own individual impacts.
Okay. All right. I mean, we still have more coming up. There's still Dr. Ikenna Emedike, and he's talking about HPV vaccine and how he's been online because he's a social media, champion on immunization for Enugu State. So you can imagine how vast he is, kind of issues he has made online, especially because some of these issues stem from the social media when it comes to misconception and misleading information about your health. So at this point, again, we'll take a short break, maybe the last one for this particular episode. And once we come back, we'll do a wrap up and then bring you more in subsequent editions. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thank you once again for staying tuned. You're still watching Gyna Plus right on Afia television, and we've been discussing HPV vaccine. We've been talking about what HPV is, how it's important to your health, and why it's important to take it. So if you have a daughter that's between 9 to 14, I mean, you should also look at this very critically. And if you're a woman from 21, just like our guest talked about, you do a pap smear and then see how you can also have your vaccine taken. So at this point, we'll take one last question from Dr. Emedike and then say goodbye. So mothers are watching, girls are watching, women are watching, and of course, fathers too are watching. What is that one information? Because I know you talked about so many concerns that stem from social media, from your workspace in the hospital, people you meet on transit. But what is this message when it comes to vaccine acceptance? What is your parting word on this particular episode on the show?
Okay, I will tell our mothers to please protect your girl child. If you save a woman, you're saving a nation. Protect their future by getting the girl child vaccinated, because the benefits way outweighs the risks. For whatever claims or myths the risk might be, the benefits outweighs all possible claims of the risks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And really, just to wrap this up, what you need sometimes is just the right information at the right time. And you've gotten it all here for free. So avail yourself of this opportunity so you stay healthy. And if there is need, see a doctor. That way you stay informed as well. It's been a wonderful time on the show. And of course, we've been discussing with Dr. Ikenna Emedike, who is a social media champion on immunization for Enugu State under the umbrella of IPA and PAN. Thank you so much for coming around.
Thank you,
so the discussion is not over yet. I mean, next week we're going to have a part 2, and you get to learn more about HPV vaccine and everything that you need to know about, maybe briefly on cervical cancer. And I'm talking on cervical cancer. We've done a full episode on this show, and it's on our YouTube channel, Afia Lifestyle and Culture. If you want to learn more about HPV causes, of course, absence of HPV. I mean, HPV causes cervical cancer, right? That is, he said so. One of the viruses that causes cervical cancer and other cancers. So you can learn more by watching what we talk about cervical cancer, so you stay informed. Thank you once again, and see you next week. Have a lovely evening. My name is Doris Mayo Shishe. Goodbye.